What is up, everyone? Brandon First, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome in to another edition of the NFL Weekly. It is week 16 already. Obviously, Christmas is a few days away, and the playoffs are a few weeks away. We're going to dive into the games previews coming up this weekend. But before we do that, let's introduce my co-host. We'll start with Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090 on Twitter. How you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. Here we are in San Diego, California, where my big dilemma for the holiday is, do I really want to turn on the oven or do I just want to go outside and barbecue? Because I understand it's going to be a beautiful weekend to all my friends who are out there in snow countries and things like that. My thoughts are with you, and I'm glad I'm not.
Amen. If you do have any frustrations, reach out and we'll go over the tax code and all that stuff in California. And I promise you, it'll make you feel nice, warm, and fuzzy wherever you are. But yes, I think it's going to be about 80 here in San Diego on Christmas. Woo.
Yeah, that's correct.
There's a lot of people who just turned off the pod because of that. But we also have, of course, as always, Coach Brandon Lupian. You can find Coach at Portland76er on Twitter. How you doing tonight, sir?
Doing well. And yeah, I don't want to boast and brag as much as Raider Jim did, but yeah, it's going to be a beautiful Christmas Day, Sunday here. But one thing that I wanted to let you guys know, it ain't our fault. It's not our fault. So everyone in freezing their tails off, forgive us, but it's not our fault. So
amen.
Love it. I love it. Get outside and barbecue, Raider Jim. Get outside and barbecue.
That's it. I'm with you.
Yeah. And remember, all the hate mail at Raider Jim 1090. But with that, it is time. Before we do look ahead to week 16, let's take a look back to one of the wildest weekends I've ever seen. Maybe this year. This year's been kind of crazy with some of the weekends, the storylines, but I think you'd be hard pressed to find a crazier weekend than this past weekend. Of course, Saturday we saw the Colts give up a 33-0 lead at halftime. They end up losing in overtime to the Vikings. Then, of course, we have the I don't know what you want to call it. It's definitely not maybe we'll call it the immaculate fumble reception. We had Chandler Jones, I guess, picking off Jacoby Myers and taking that to the house in one of the more boneheaded plays we've ever seen. But I know Raider Jim was a fan of that situation. But this is also going to be a two-part question, because also the big storyline last week had to be the officiating. Now, it was in the Giants-Redskins game. There was a possible pass interference. Personally, I believe it was pass interference, but for the final play of the game, I at least understand why the refs didn't throw the flag. Whether you agree with it or not, they want to let it be determined on the field. But I think the bigger issue was the wide receiver, his name escapes me, but he was trying to ask the ref if he's on the line of scrimmage. And it's common courtesy for pretty much every wide receiver to be given that. Yes, you're on the line of scrimmage, or no, you're not. You need to move up a little. He was not given that courtesy. They threw a flag on him. Seems a little bit of dirty pool. And then, of course, we had in the Vikings game, there were two separate times that plays were called back because they blew the whistle a little early. I always think of it as the Ed Hockley rule from that Charger Bronco game back in the day. But not a fantastic weekend for the officials, but a great weekend of football. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Week 15's craziness along with the issues going on at the officiating level.
Yeah, boss, a long time ago, tell me, the minute you involve humans, you lost your chance at perfection. And boy, I'm telling you, I don't know if it's the caliber of referee has just declined. I'm really not sure. It can't be that they're taxed and stressed, or overtaxed and stressed. It was just, some of those calls were ridiculous. Obviously, I'm not stating anything new. That game in Washington, when that wide receiver did everything but jump, and if the wide receiver would have jumped up and down and waved his hands, then they still would have got him for illegal procedure. But he was, as you said, all he's doing is the thing that every wide receiver is taught to do and learns to do. And 99 times out of 100, that official is either going to take his fist and point it one way or the other or give a nod. So I really, it escapes me. It escapes me the level of officiating or what it had declined to, as we saw during Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Some of the questionable, umpiring in that sport as well, which then I understand we're not talking apples to apples, but when you see the sports stories here locally, regionally, Southern California, there's an all points bulletin. Hey, we need people to sign up and be referees because we just don't have any referees anymore. And so pretty much any schmo is going to walk over there and go, give me my striped shirt. I know the game. They probably don't. But I don't know. Is it a diluted pool? Possibly.
Yeah, it's an issue, and I don't know. I don't think it'll be addressed here in the next few weeks, but I do hopefully in the off season that something is done. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how they fix this. I guess my only thought on it would be, maybe all these extra. I mean, I look at the catch rule. It's so tough these days to actually. I mean, I've been watching football my entire life. I don't know what a catch is anymore. And I do kind of wonder if maybe there are just too many little gray areas and these referees, they're just not, and like you said, they are human. But it's tough when we all can see it. You're getting paid to make that call and you don't do it. It's very frustrating. And I know Coach, going back to that NFC title game, we talk about pass interferences being missed. He's over here rolling his eyes saying, we're talking about a week 15 game. Don't talk to me until it's in the NFC Championship. Obviously, the Saints have been hard-pressed pretty much one game every year the last 5 or 6 years. But, Coach, what are your thoughts on the officiating situation and the crazy week last week?
Yeah, it was a crazy week, but I think this is I think we're starting to see it's the NFL's own mess. I really can't emphasize enough kind of what you hit as far as the gray areas, as far as what's a catch and what's not a catch. But also, like a couple of weeks back, I saw a hand to a helmet indiscreetly, accidentally, and I've seen that called, and then last week or a couple of weeks ago I didn't see it called. So there's human error is definitely playing its role. Confusion and questioning is definitely playing its role. Raider Jim brought up a diluted pool is playing its role. It's up to the NFL. They gotta clean up their own mess as far as what they want to state and how clear they're gonna be with it and whatnot. There was a time when referees would make a call and feel comfortable a head coach was going to throw the red flag so that they could get a better view of it, and it seems like that's gone out of control. And I don't know. It's just it's a number of things that I think you both touched on that there. I don't think in this situation there are no wrong answers, even if it's a purposefully called penalty or whatnot. So you just never know. But I think you guys touched on the key points, and we could only hope it gets better, right? We could only hope.
I agree. And maybe if it doesn't get better, let's get maybe a little more consistent. Going back to the baseball analogy, I used to say all the time, look, if you're a home plate umpire, be consistent. I might not agree with your call in the bottom of the first, but by the bottom of the sixth, we know what the strike zone is. So don't change it. If you're going to be bad for both teams, and you can adjust to it. Ideally, we want these guys to be, perfect every time. But I think on my best day, I make plenty of mistakes. I'm not getting paid, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and on national TV to do those things. But it is a little tough to deal with, I think, for a lot of fans. And I hope that, as we said, that it is addressed in the offseason. And I hope it is. because it's getting a bit much. And there's the elephant in the room that you just kind of wonder what team is going to get screwed out of the playoffs by a bad playoff call. I guarantee you one of the playoff games, something controversial will happen. I just guarantee it. So we will see how that goes. But in terms of the playoffs, those are a few weeks away. We do have some week 16 action to break down, 9 games to be exact. We had a little bit of a flub. I put the rundown together yesterday and added tonight's game. And obviously we aren't going to be able to preview that, as that'll be done and dusted long before this comes out. So 9 games for you for this Christmas episode. And we'll start with probably the biggest game of the weekend, at least for me, and I think for a lot of fans. Does have a little bit of a caveat to it. It is the Philadelphia Eagles heading to the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, no Jalen Hurts in this game. It will be Gardner Minshew. The Eagles are plus 170. The Cowboys are minus 5.5. That line did move, I think, a little bit from yesterday. The over-under sits at 47.5. Obviously, I'll get this one started. You're taking a step down when you go from Jalen Hurts to Gardner Minshew. However, I don't think it's a humongous step. I would say the biggest thing that Gardner has to kind of change, or the offense has to change, is you're not running quarterback draws on 1st and 10. Gardner Minshew can move a little, but he is not Jalen Hurts. The biggest question I'm going to have for Gardner Minshew is his RPO abilities, because that's what the Eagles are going to run. Even with Gardner in there, that's a big bread and butter of their offense. And a lot of times with RPOs, you have to be very quick in your decision making, especially if you're throwing the ball, because early in the season for the Eagles, they were penalized so many times for the illegal man downfield or ineligible man downfield. That's going to happen on RPOs if you don't make that first read correctly. That's something to keep an eye on. I actually like the Eagles to win this game here, and I'm going to tell you why. Like I said, I think the overall talent of the Eagles is superior to the Cowboys. The Cowboys are going to have the better quarterback. Maybe they have the best defensive player in Micah Parsons, but the Eagles have the best offensive line. I think they have a very good running game. Maybe not that great tandem that the Cowboys have, but I think that running game will be able to stand up with them. Wide receivers, I give the edge to the Eagles, and I think overall defense, I'm going to give the edge to the Eagles as well. Something else to keep an eye on as well, and this is kind of one of those, take it with a grain of salt if you'd like, but Gardner Minshew, one of his biggest, the biggest reason he's probably in this spot is Mike Leach. Mike Leach believed in Gardner Minshew, kind of resurrected his college career at Washington State. Obviously, Gardner Minshew spoke at Mike Leach's memorial earlier this week. Maybe a little extra fire for Gardner Minshew. I don't think he needs any extra fire, but if he needs it, it's there for him. So I'm going to actually ride with the Eagles. I like them on the money line. Like I said, I'm probably biased. I don't think I'm actually making that pick, but I do like the Eagles in this game. I think even with Hurts being out, it's not the end of the world. And because of Dallas's loss last week to Jacksonville, this isn't a must-win game for the Eagles. They'd love to win it and clinch the 1 seed. Fantastic. But if they lose it, it's not immediate panic mode as if Dallas would have won last week. Then it would be a little dicier. So that's where I'm looking at. In terms of the over-under, I do think we see some points being scored. Pretty much any dome game this weekend, you're not going to have to worry about weather. All the other games, weather, or at least coldness, is going to be an issue. And also one more thing, a lot of these games are going to be on Saturday. The majority of games will be on Saturday, just a heads up. Only 3 games on Sunday. So don't let that sneak up on you. But we'll head over to you, Raider Jim. What are your thoughts? Eagles head to the Cowboys for the Cowboys' kind of final shot to keep their hopes of a division title alive.
Yeah, boy, this is going to be a great game. Unfortunately, I think it was a bad time to see an injury at quarterback for the Eagles, which is, again, let me state the obvious. And going into Dallas, my thought is, after the game last week, they have to be a little bit wanting to get out on the field and make a statement of their own, saying, no, that was a fluke. Not so much a fluke, but, yeah, we blew it last week. Well, let us show you what we're made of this week. It's just, you go down the line. The running game for both teams is phenomenal. And just over the last few weeks, I would give the edge to the Cowboys running tandem. just a few yards. It's not like there's this great disparity in yardage in the running game. Passing game, I will say, since he came back from his injury, Prescott has been doing pretty good. I think he's got 17 touchdowns since he came back from his injury. This game is going to go down to the wire. I will take Philadelphia in this one. It'll be Philadelphia to cover the 4.5. Give me another half point. Give it 5. So Philadelphia +5. But with, like you said, this is definitely going to go over. There's going to be some fireworks out there.
Definitely. I think we're going to see a Cowboys team that comes off as maybe a little desperate. This is, like I said, their last chance. Big difference for the Cowboys, that 1 seed versus the 5 seed. Maybe that first game, no big deal, because you're going to have an NFC South opponent. But you're going on the road pretty much the rest of the way. Big difference for the Cowboys there. So unfortunately, Coach did have to go pick up his little one, so he did have to just hop off. But we'll have Coach with us next week. Diving into the next game, we are going to be rolling with those Las Vegas Raiders. They will be at the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception. Thoughts and prayers to the Franco Harris family as he passed away just a few days ago. But at the moment, the Raiders are +130 on the money line. Steelers -155. Steelers sit at 2.5 point favorites. The over-under is 38.5. There's only one person we go with to start this one. Raider Jim, the floor is yours.
Yeah, and before I talk about who's going to win, who's going to lose, and the circus ending of that Raider game last week, you said it. Thoughts and prayers, condolences to Franco Harris's family. Now, having watched that game live, I actually told the story to somebody. My parents dragged me out Christmas shopping with them that day. And I'm standing in a department store in the TV section because I wanted to see the Raider-Steeler game. And that's where I was, standing with a bunch of other guys who were letting the wives and daughters and all go do their shopping. And we're all gathered around these, big oversized color TVs. From my day and age, my experience watching NFL, you see these words get overused, not just NFL, but sports in general. Oh, the greatest of all time, or, epic battles and things like that. Another word that gets thrown out there is dynasty. Well, what is really a dynasty? Let me tell you. That Steelers team with Harris and Bradshaw and Fuqua and Swan and Jack Hammond, Lambert and Joe Green, the Steel Curtain. Folks, if you had an opportunity to see them on TV live or in person live, you had the honor of watching a true dynasty. That team was amazing. One of the greatest things I have in my collection of memorabilia is a book about the Steelers, and it is signed by Chuck Noll, Joe Green, Jack Lambert, Mel Blount. And I'm telling you, to meet each one of those guys as they were just milling about Mission Valley, still goes down as wow. And they were all very nice, very pleasant. There was no hurry up, sign the book and throw it back at you. They just sat, thank you for being a fan, etc. But again, I never had the opportunity to get an autograph from Franco. But for a while, and I don't know if it's still the case, as I mentioned to you and Coach, he was the brother-in-law of one of our local sport or weather men here. That was Dave Scott. And I understand that Franco was nothing but the big-hearted guy, kindest gentleman. He will be missed. But thank you for the impact that you made on the NFL and everything you gave to NFL fans. On to the game. What a circus last week, right? First of all, I don't know if you've ever ridden on a Southwest flight or any other flight where they have those seats near the middle where it's like the seats face each other near the emergency exit. If I was Belichick, I would have made that clown who threw the ball back to the quarterback or tried to sit on one of those seats, and I'd have sat directly across from him on the flight home, and I'd have just stared at him. I wouldn't have said a damn word the whole time and just stared at him. I'd have reached up, got my drink from the flight attendant and brought it back. My eyes would have never left him. I don't know I don't know what anybody was thinking on that play. I don't know if they were just content with going into overtime. Your nemesis there, Matt Patricia, was that his doing? I know. Let's run a draw play. I don't know who does that. Regardless, the Raiders won the game. Going into Pittsburgh, now Pittsburgh has that added incentive this week. The added incentive being, let's do it for the organization. Let's do it for Franco. They were actually going to retire, or they are going to retire Franco's number at the game this week. So everything's lining up against the Raiders as far as hometown is bad enough when you're sitting in the Pittsburgh stands and you're wearing the other team's jersey. I can't imagine what it will be like on Saturday. However, I think the Raiders are going to do what they can to either get lucky or play well. You know, they seem to go on again, off again. So it's time for them to have that on week again, get the upper hand on Pittsburgh. I think they can do that. My concern is the Pittsburgh running game, and are they going to exploit the Raiders defensive line? They may very well do that. But if we can keep Pittsburgh on the sideline offensively, I think the Raiders, if they can execute, roll up another 24 to 30 points, their game. So I will take Vegas +3 all day long on this one. And I'm going to go over the 39.5 because I think Vegas is good for at least 24, 28 points.
I agree. I like the over a lot. I think it's not a slam dunk in any stretch, but I do think we're going to see some points being scored. I just checked the weather. It's going to be cold. It'll be in the teens, but we're not going to, at least, we're still 3 days away. But we're not going to actually, now that I think about it, I was looking at Sunday's weather. So let me just check that, because I do expect weather to be an issue. Same thing. It's going to be cold. Maybe in the single digits on Saturday, but doesn't look like we're going to see any snow or any inclement weather. So that's something to keep an eye on there. But I actually do like the Raiders here a lot as well. I just think they're playing good ball right now. I know last week, I know a lot of Raider fans were kind of thinking, oh, here we go again. They get up big and then all of a sudden they go down. And it's just, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It felt like deja vu all over again. And it may have been without that Jacoby Myers gaffe. But I do just think the Raiders go out, they get the job done. I actually like the Raiders money line here. I think there is value on that +130 number. So I do like the Raiders to get the win here. I just think they're a better team. In terms of the over-under, like I said, I think we're going to see plenty of points being scored. And I think this number is probably 4 or 5 points lower just because of kind of the weather that a lot of people expect the East Coast to have this weekend. So it's not enough for me to get off of these guys. I don't think Derek Carr is going to worry too much about stuff like that. He's going to go out and try and win this football game. And in order for the Raiders to win this football game, they need to score points. So that's why I like the over in this one. And like I said, I just think the Raiders have enough in the tank to take down a Pittsburgh team that's been playing better than normal, but maybe a little too much against a Raider team that, like I said, I think is somewhat figured it out. I don't think they're where they want to be, but I think they're definitely leaps and bounds where they were a month ago. So moving on to another game that's going to have some weather implications, possibly see some snow in Cleveland. It's going to be the New Orleans Saints on the road, +130 on the money line at the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are -145. The spread at the moment sits at 3. And the over-under is 32.5. Once again, that is a big weather adjusted line there. Raider Jim, I'll give you the honors to get this one started. We got the Saints at the Browns.
Yeah, well, for coach's sake, our esteemed colleague, I really do that at halftime, a sleigh comes out of the sky and Santa rips off his suit and it's Sean Payton. Is it going to happen? Probably not. But Coach, if I could make a Christmas wish for you, there it is, my friend.
What a guy.
Anyway, on to the game. I think New Orleans is having one of those what do we need to do type seasons. Cleveland, on the other hand, is having a pretty consistent, pretty good season. They've had some breaks. They've made their own mistakes at times. They had a pretty good game last week. The running game again, as it was with that Dallas game. And my concern for the Raiders against the strong Pittsburgh running game. It's the running game is going to be the difference here. We both know that both teams are going to play good defense. We both know this isn't going to be a shootout on the scoreboard. But I do like, by virtue of the running game and by virtue of the game at home, I do not know. This is another Saturday game. I'm not sure of the weather. I didn't see anything for any of the Saturday games that said, oh my God, this is going to get ugly, except for possibly that Bears game that we'll get to in a few minutes. So give me Cleveland on this one, minus the 2.5 and under the 32.
Yeah, this is another game, very, very cold, but on Saturday, it doesn't look right now like there will be any weather. They are expecting some on Sunday, so if something gets there early, but I think the weather, or at least the cold, will be the biggest factor. Maybe not so much any inclement weather in terms of rain or snow or sleet, whatever it's called. Obviously, you have a dome team going out to the weather, but at the same time, I've said it all the time. These guys have played, most of these guys have played in games like this. It's not something that's terribly foreign to them. And I think they do enough. I do think we do stay under here, though, and it's mainly because of the defenses. I think we have two really good defenses going at it. I do like Cleveland, though, to cover that 3, maybe buy a half a point just to cover yourself for to get Cleveland minus 2.5. But I just think the Browns, they're a better football team right now. I think they're a little more consistent. Obviously, the Saints are still in the fight for the South. There's no doubt about that. So it's a very big game for the Saints. I just think it's too much of an ask for them. Go on the road in some weather that maybe they're not terribly comfortable in. But I do think we are going to stay under that, like I said, just because of those defenses more so than the actual weather. So give me Cleveland minus 2.5 and the under 32.5 in that one. Moving on to the Cincinnati Bengals heading to New England to face the Patriots. The Bengals are minus 190 on the money line. Patriots sit at plus 155. The over-under is 41.5 with the Bengals as 3-point favorites. I'll start this one off. I like Cincinnati here. I'm a little kind of confused maybe with the line where it is with the Bengals only 3-point favorites. I just think the Bengals are right now looking around and saying, look, we're probably the best team in the NFC North, or excuse me, the AFC North. And they could maybe make a case that they're second or third best team in the AFC overall. They could boast a win over Kansas City. But with that being said, I think Cincinnati does enough to win this game. May cover myself as well with the minus 2.5 by a half a point just in case. But I'm not terribly concerned on that. I think the Bengals probably get the job done after last week. But I do expect the Bill Belichick. I expect a lot less mistakes this week from the Patriots. In terms of the over-under, I like the over here. I like what I've seen out of Cincinnati's offense the last few weeks. And similarly with the Patriots, obviously, they're going to have to kind of step their game up in this one, but I think they can get to that 20-point mark, and that's probably all you're going to need if you want to hit that over in that one. So, Raider Jim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Cincinnati's playing good ball right now. There's that theory out there that the minute it hits December and things get cold, the Patriots get better. Whatever it is that Belichick does in his magic castle to make that happen, that's not going to be the case this time. I think you can tell the real mettle of the New England Patriots this year by that last play versus the Raiders last week. Spoke greatly to me that this is not a Belichick team of the past. And you can't execute things like that or attempt to execute things like that at the pivotal point, the game determining point. I just don't understand. And with that, you can't have a Cincinnati team that just likes to come in, and they're finally in a good rhythm right now. They're a good scoring rhythm. Going over 41 points in this game, no problem. You let us put up 35, we'll put up 35. That's probably what's going to happen this week. I don't know how they're going to have a scheme to defend Jamar Chase. I really don't. And even if they do, you're going to dedicate 2 bodies to constantly watch this guy, chase him back and forth as he's, doing his shift during the set. And you're going to leave somebody open, or you're going to open your running game, one or the other. Either way, it's going to be, watch for Mixon and Chase to have great games. Joe Burrow, of course, to have a great game. And the Cincinnati defense, too. I think they're going to get after our boy back there, Jones, and give me Cincinnati to cover at the 3 or 3.5. You said it was 3 or 3.5.
At the moment, it is 3.
Okay, if it's at 3, I'll definitely take the -3, and I will take over 41.5.
Gotcha. Sounds like you got someone agreeing over there with you as well. So we got the double verification.
Yeah, they were supposed to do that when it was Cleveland, so I could tell you the dog pound was behind.
Oh, all right. Run it back. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that would have been fantastic in that situation. We'll work on the timing with the pup for next week. But moving on to another interesting matchup, we have the New York Giants at the Minnesota Vikings. Giants are plus 150 on the money line side of things. Vikings minus 185. Vikings are 3.5-point favorites. The over-under sits at 48. The Vikings have clinched the NFC North by way of that win last week. Still have some seeding to get to. They want to, have an outside shot at the 1 seed. I don't expect that to happen, but they do technically still have a shot at that. Probably going to be looking at a 2 or a 3. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Giants going on the road to Minnesota to face the Vikings.
This is a wild game. There was a point last week in that Minnesota game, I was getting text question marks from the person. I said, take Minnesota minus 2.5 in the over. I just kept getting a question mark. And I was like, oh boy, this is not a good thing. And then pretty soon it turned around. But is it because Minnesota's that capable, or is it because the Saturday night specials are just not that good? The Colts, what do you say when you give that up? And on the next game, when I watched the Giants and Washington, I really thought Washington was going to win that one. No problem, especially early on in the game. And I think Washington went a little off their game. They were just running like madmen. Those big linemen of theirs were just doing the job, and all of a sudden they seemed to go away from the outside run, and next thing you know, the Giants are in the game. Hats off to Saquon Barkley. The guy had a fantastic game last week, but is he going to come into Minnesota and do it again? I think they're going to give a good effort, but I think Minnesota, it was almost their wake-up call. It was their wake-up call in Week 15, but also they were able to go into the locker room afterwards, and the coach could give the old "see it ain't over till it's over" talk. I think you're going to see scoring in this game. I think it's going to be contested, but I do think Minnesota will cover this one at 3.5. I think they'll probably win by 6, but definitely over the 48.
I agree. I think we're going to see the Vikings a little more consistent, I think, for 4 quarters in this one. Their big concern, they have to feel good, right? They had that great win against Buffalo where they came back, and then obviously this one where they came back in a huge way, and they've had other kind of cardiac kid type games, blah, blah, blah. And that's great. They count all the same. But at the same time, as we get deeper into the playoffs, you're not going to have the Colts be that kind of punching bag. If the Vikings go down 33-0 to pretty much any playoff team in the NFC, I don't see them getting back into it. So, as you said, a huge wake-up call for them. As good as that felt, I think they all probably silently and internally said, okay, well, we can't let that happen again. Like, we're good for 133-point comeback this year. We're not getting 2. And at the same time, I don't expect the Giants to get up 33-0 on them. Saquon Barkley is this offense, essentially. I know Daniel Jones has played better, but this is a team that is in their position because of Saquon Barkley's performances and his health. He's been healthy all year, and he's been fantastic. This is what we expect out of a guy like Saquon playing 16, 17 games. And I think he does enough to somewhat keep him in. I think he does more for the over in that situation than actually keeping this game a little closer because look, if the Giants get down 17-3, they get down 21-7, something like that, it's going to be very difficult when you put the ball in the hands of Daniel Jones to come back. I do like the Vikings here in this one. I like them to cover the 3.5. And I do like the over here as well. I do think we're going to see some points being scored. Neither of these defenses are really, incredible. Kayvon Thibodeau had a bit of a coming out last week. Really solid stuff out of the first round pick for the Giants. So good news for them. But once again, I just think we're going to see two offenses that kind of want to let it fly and two defenses that aren't really in a position to stop anything like that from happening. So Vikings minus 3.5 over 48 sounds pretty unanimous here on this side. But moving on to another matchup in the NFC, we have the Washington Commanders plus 265 on the money line at the San Francisco 49ers, who are minus 350. The Niners are 7-point favorites, and the over-under sits at 37.5. Raider Jim, I'll give you the honors. Commanders at Niners in this one.
Yeah, let me tell you, you talk about the quiet team that's just coming in and week out and not doing much of any, it doesn't look like they're doing much, but somehow they're 10-4 running away with the NFC West. Here's why they're going to win. They are giving up just over 10 points a game after 14 games. They have surrendered 210 points. Now, offensively, they're not ripping it up, but still, they're scoring twice as much as they are giving up. Washington, on the other hand, is also playing good defense, 276, but that still puts them closer to giving up 20 a game. And that's going to be the difference in this one. Not only that, Garoppolo goes down and people say, oh no, what are we going to do? This cat named Brock's going to come in and oh my gosh, this isn't looking good. Hey, hats off to him. And, this is a strong defensive team or offensive and defensive team all the way around. But that defense goes back to what Coach said the first week that Garoppolo was out. This team's going to go as far as the defense takes it. And he is doing that. So I think that the no problem for San Francisco to cover on this one. 7, maybe drop it by a point, take the 6. But if they win by 10, I'm not going to be surprised. Over 38 is another story. You really got to look at that one because I can see this being a 21-14, 21-10. That type of a thing. So give me under on that, in under 38, but definitely San Francisco minus 6 I will take.
Definitely. I'm in full agreement on this one. It is the return or the debut, or at least season debut for Chase Young. So I think that's good news for the Commanders to get one of their young defensive stars back at the very least, kind of get ready for next year, give him some game reps before the off season. So keep an eye on that. Selfishly, I want the Eagles to go to the Super Bowl, obviously, but me looking ahead, if the Niners do make the Super Bowl and it is Brock Purdy, as the starting quarterback, I tell you what, I would love to see the prop bet on the over under of how many times the announcer, does that was a Purdy pass, because I think it would be pretty high. I think it would be something to keep an eye on, in that one, but Brock Purdy, obviously, I hate the Mr. Irrelevant thing, so I'm just going to say he was the final pick of the draft. At the moment, all the teams in the playoffs in the NFC, Daniel Jones is the only one that was a first-round pick. It's pretty crazy to think about in this situation, but at least for the Niners, it's very interesting because Garoppolo goes down, and like you said, and Coach hit the nail on the head, the defense is the king here. Any other team, I think 31 teams, you lose your starting quarterback for the rest of the year. Uh-oh. For the Niners, it's, okay, we'll survive. Like I said, will they make the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy at quarterback? I think that might be a little bit of a tall task. A lot of pressure on that defense. But I think this game for this week, I think the Niners can cover that. Yeah, like I said, maybe by a half a point, get yourself to 6.5, just in case. But I do like the under 38 as well. I just don't know how the Commanders are going to score a ton of points. There's a little bit of a quarterback controversy with Carson Wentz possibly trying to force his way back into things. So we'll see how that rolls forward. Going to be a tough game for Taylor Heineke, who's been turning the ball over a lot lately against a good San Francisco defense. So moving on to Monday Night Football. The Chargers at the Colts. Chargers are minus 210. Colts are plus 170 money line wise. Chargers 4.5-point favorites. The over-under is 45.5. Raider Jim, it's AFC West, so the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'd like to say that Indianapolis is going to put up a great fight, and they are going to make the Chargers wait at least one more week before they are taking their next step closer to getting into the playoffs. But after that abominable disappointment last week against the Vikings, and I believe that the Chargers are pretty much a better team than the Vikings if you look at it, because they're playing with a lot of beat up and battered people, and they're still winning, and they're a high-powered offense. So Chargers to cover the 3.5 on this, I don't think is going to be a hard thing for them to do. It's going to be inside, comfortable, and dry. And wow, what else do you want? They might think they're back in LA. Indianapolis, on the other hand, they're in a bad state. So even though that's what we got to look forward to on Monday night, unfortunately. So kind of like the Christmas letdown, all the wrapping paper's in the trash can, and the good meal is already gone. And so I guess this could be appropriate. We're getting the leftovers, folks.
Yeah, obviously, I think there were a lot of people this past week getting ready to write up, the sports writers getting ready to get their best headline together. Jeff Saturday dominates on a Saturday. Did not happen, or at least the first half of it. So I'm wondering, if maybe the Colts give Rick Monday a call, and maybe they get Rick Monday onto the staff, and hey, we got a Monday on there for Monday Night Football. We'll see how that goes. But I agree with you. The gut punch. If there was any fight left in this Colt team, it was extinguished with that field goal to win the game this past Saturday. That's a devastating way to lose. And for Jeff Saturday, there were a lot of questions asked why he was given that job. And I'm not going to put all of that on Jeff Saturday, but Jeff Saturday for the last 2 or 3 weeks, you definitely can put that on him. I don't think anything changes here. The Chargers, my biggest concern with the Chargers, and I've said this pretty much all year, is they're kind of like a chameleon team. They're playing a really good team, they're going to play really well. They're playing a really bad team, they're going to play down to that level. I mean, I just go back to the Niners, how well they played against the Niners, didn't win that game, but played well against a very good team. And then you also look at how they played against the Jaguars. And I know the Jaguars are probably better than we expected, but the Chargers are better than that team, and the Jaguars are able to beat the Chargers rather handily on the road as well. So that's my only concern in this one, the Chargers kind of playing down to the competition. But with that being said, I'm still taking the Chargers minus 4.5. I think they do enough. They may win by double digits. If we're being honest, I just think this team is in the right mindset right now. And the over-under at 45.5. I do like the over here, but I am worried mainly because how is Matt Ryan and company going to put points up on the board? But a lot of this, like I said, I think this can be a closer game than people expect. Still think the Chargers cover, but I don't think it's going to be, the blowout that we expected last week from Indianapolis. So give me the Chargers to cover, and I will take over 45.5. Moving on to one of the Sunday games we'll be talking about. We have the Green Bay Packers plus 165 at the Miami Dolphins, minus 200 on the money line. The line spread-wise is the Dolphins 3.5-point favorites at home. The over-under sits at 50. We saw Aaron Rodgers take care of the Rams and officially eliminate the Rams this past Monday. And I think a lot of people are surprised to learn that the Packers are still, quote unquote, in the hunt. And I tell you what, if you look at the way their schedule lines up, they have to feel okay about at least their share of what needs to happen. This game against the Dolphins, obviously, The Dolphins favored here, but I'm going to say this right now. I like the Packers money line. I don't know what it is. The only thing, I keep hearing that one phrase in my head kind of on repeat, and I hear it in Aaron Rodgers' voice. The reports of our demise have been greatly exaggerated. And I think that's kind of where we are right now with the Packers. 2 or 3 weeks ago, they were done and dusted. We don't have to worry about Aaron Rodgers or the Packers. And then all of a sudden, it's Monday at 10 o'clock, and you go, wait, they can win out and still make the playoffs? And they go on the road to Miami and then back-to-back home games against the Vikings and the Lions. Those are winnable games for the Packers. So I like the Packers to get the job done here. I just think Miami, Tua, really a good football team, but you have a desperate Aaron Rodgers coming to town, and he may come out and lay an egg. But at the same time, I am not betting against Aaron Rodgers in December in a very meaningful game for them. Give me the Packers. Like I said, I'll take the money line. I think they're going to win it. And in order for them to win it, they're going to have to go over 50. I had two defenses that Packers defense is really bad. Dolphins defense has played below, I think, what we expected out of them. Maybe they can bounce back a little bit, but either way, I'm riding with the over on this one. I think we're going to see some points being scored. This game is in Miami, so you don't have to worry about any December weather in Green Bay, anything like that. So, Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Packers on the road in Miami.
Yeah, I think you pretty much hit it. You know, they tell you that even from the time you're a little kid coming up in the sports world, being coach, you know, the dangerous animal is the blue people. And that right now is Aaron Rodgers. Right now is the entire Packers team. You also hit on another point that I had down on my notes, which is, you know, when you really look at Miami, I think I would call them slightly a disappointment this season. I think they should have played a little more. I'm surprised at what their record is. Some of that, probably a little more than half of that reason, is because of the defense. The defense just isn't there. They're not letting the offense wrap up the game. Keep it close, and guess what? Miami's going to lose. That's all there is to it. And as you said, this is a different game, though. Rodgers may be playing the last games of his career. He wants to go out a winner, and he is going to definitely play it, and I'm sure he does anyway, one game at a time. Take him out of the snow, put him in some nice warm weather, air it out. This is going to be a great game. Like you, I'm going to go with Green Bay. I'm going to go ahead and take them to cover, though, at +5, and then also go with I'm with you. I'm going to go with the over on this one.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I saw a really funny video out of Barstool Sports. They have, of course, Big Cat is a huge Bears fan and probably the biggest Aaron Rodgers hater there is. And he was doing his little spiel kind of like we do. And they told him the remaining schedule for the Packers. And you could just see the life just leaving him when he realizes, oh my gosh, we could see Aaron Rodgers playing in January in a playoff game. And like I said, it is very possible. However, they have to win out, and it's got to start against the Dolphins. But it sounds like we both, I think they can get it done. Definitely a cover there from Raider Jim as well. We both like the over. So final game we'll be talking about will be, as you kind of alluded to, Raider Jim, probably the most inclement weather one. It'll be the Buffalo Bills at the Chicago Bears. The Bills are minus 450 on the money line. The Bears are +330. And the Bills, 8.5-point favorites, with the over-under sitting at 39.5. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Bills at Bears.
The Bears have done this amazing way of staying in games. Offensively, they haven't been that bad at all. And as far as the weather goes, I went ahead and pulled up the screen right now. On Sunday, in the morning, they're calling for a 7% chance of snow. And by nightfall, only a 23% chance of snow. So the odds are we're not going to see snow falling in that game. Winds are going to be 10 to 20 miles an hour. It's going to be 13 degrees. I don't care who you are. That's cold. I don't want to hear this. Well, you know, they play back there, so they're used to it. No, that's like telling a boxer you must get used to getting hit in the face. No, you don't. It hurts when it happens. Allen goes in, they take care of business. The Buffalo defense is going to be what really puts the kibosh on any hopes of the Bears pulling off a miracle in the Windy City. Give me Buffalo all day long on this. Well, let's see. I'm going to reverse that. Give me the Bears to cover at 10. Bears plus 10, but there's not going to be a lot of points just by virtue of the weather. So I'm going to go under 41 on the points.
I agree. I think the under is a pretty safe bet here. I'll tell you what. Obviously, Jalen Hurts and the Eagles last week probably got more than they expected from the Bears, and a lot of it was self-imposed. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, Jalen Hurts maybe a little bit of a bum shoulder going into that game. Throws 2 interceptions early on. The Eagles kind of have to, fight their way into that one. Justin Fields. I don't know if he's ever going to be an elite drop back passer. But this guy is a game changer, and he's a guy that can keep them in it. You talked about the Bears staying close in a lot of games. A lot of that is because of what we've seen from Justin Fields, just an electric athlete. Like I said, if he can get kind of like Jalen Hurts, if he can make that step passing wise that Jalen Hurts has made, wow, because I love Jalen Hurts, but Justin Fields, he's built. I mean, he's 6'4", 6'5", a little bit better on the eye test in that situation, especially when he gets hit as much as he does. You don't kind of hold your breath as much as you do with kind of the smaller quarterbacks, if you will. But so I do think for the Bears, they have something to look forward to. I think they have a really good young quarterback in Justin Fields. But I don't know if that'll be enough this weekend. I just think the Bills are in kind of that Terminator mode. They know it's time to get rolling. For the last 2 or 3 years, the Bills have been in this situation late in the year, opportunities to win the division and kind of stamp their, at the moment, top seed. Still have some work to do, and I think they continue to do that. They definitely get the win, but I'm with you. I like the Bears to cover this. I just think Justin Fields does enough to keep this inside that spread of 8.5 or 10, however you want to look at it. But I agree with you. I think the under with the weather is going to be a big issue for this one. Like you said, you could wake up to 13 degrees every other day, but I guarantee you're still cold on the 14th day. Maybe you're used to it or you're expecting it, but your blood doesn't get thicker just overnight, things like that. So it's still going to be a bit of a shock. And for a lot of these wide receivers, try to catch a ball. With that, you said it was going to be 13 degrees with 15 to 20 mile/per-hour winds. Let me introduce you to my friend called wind chill. That's probably going to put a negative in front of that feels like, because I tell you what, they give you the temperature, but what does it feel like in that situation? So I do like the under here, but I do like the Bears to keep it close because of that Justin Fields factor. But that's all we have for you this week. Raider Jim, final thoughts on this edition of the NFL Weekly.
Well, here we are. It's the 22nd of December on Pacific Coast time. It is 5 p.m. or close to 5 p.m. You got a couple more days to get your shopping done and everything wrapped. And not to get too philosophical here, but let me tell you, the big thing about Christmas, unfortunately, that people seem to focus on is the presents under the tree. Every morning when you get up, it's a gift. So remember that. You're given a great gift every day. And when you look around your Christmas table today, or when you go, or on Christmas Day, or when you get reached out on the internet or a text or whatever it may be thankful for those people. Reach out and tell the people how thankful you are that they are in your life. I hope everybody has a very safe and happy holiday weekend. On behalf of Lieutenant Jim Betancourt, who was going to join us today, he would also like me to pass along, don't get crazy, don't drink, don't drive, keep yourself and everybody else on the road safe.
Amen. Believe me, it's I know not here, but I'm sure in certain areas it's hazardous to drive regularly. So do not drive drunk no matter where you are. Be safe, be responsible. And like I said, as we've said pretty much this whole month, make sure that you don't ruin yours, your family's, or someone else's holiday, because that would just be an absolute heartbreak around this time of year. You want it to be as holly and merry as possible, and I understand sometimes alcohol is involved for that, but don't involve you driving a motor vehicle as well. And I That's all we really got. Happy holidays. I believe we're still in the middle of of Hanukkah. So happy Hanukkah. Merry Christmas to everyone and all the holidays that we missed. But with that, thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the NFL Weekly, presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It's time for y'all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to y'all very soon. Have a wonderful Christmas and take care.
Merry Christmas to all.